Ethan Walker was 12 years old when everything in his life began to change. It was a cold autumn afternoon in the small town of Ravenswood. The sky was covered with gray clouds, and orange leaves danced across the empty streets as students slowly walked home from school. Ethan pulled his backpack higher onto his shoulder and sighed heavily. School had been terrible again. He wasn't popular. He wasn't strong. He wasn't especially good at sports or math. Most days, people barely noticed him at all. His father worked late every night, his mother was always tired, and his older brother treated him like he was invisible. Sometimes Ethan felt like the world had forgotten him. As he walked along the old forest road near the edge of town, he kicked a small stone across the sidewalk. "I wish something exciting would happen for once," he muttered. The wind suddenly became stronger. Leaves swirled around him in circles. And then something shiny caught his eye near the roots of a giant oak tree. Ethan slowly stepped closer. Half buried beneath the dirt was a strange golden compass. But it didn't look ordinary. The metal frame was covered with tiny symbols Ethan had never seen before. The glass shimmered faintly blue in the fading sunlight, and instead of letters for north or south, there were strange glowing markings around the edge. The needle spun wildly for a moment, before suddenly stopping, pointing directly down the forest path. Ethan carefully picked it up. The moment his fingers touched the compass, a warm feeling rushed through his body. A whisper echoed softly inside his mind. "Follow where happiness waits." Ethan froze. What? The compass needle moved slightly again, pointing deeper into the woods. At first Ethan laughed nervously. This has to be some kind of joke. But curiosity slowly defeated fear. So he followed it. The forest path twisted between tall dark trees. The farther Ethan walked, the quieter the world became. Soon he couldn't even hear cars from town anymore. Only wind. Only leaves. Only the sound of his footsteps. The compass glowed brighter with every step. Eventually Ethan reached a small clearing he had never seen before. In the center stood an abandoned treehouse. It looked ancient. Broken boards creaked in the wind, and vines climbed across the wood like giant green snakes. The compass needle pointed directly toward it. Ethan swallowed nervously. He climbed the ladder slowly. Inside the treehouse he found something unexpected. Books. Hundreds of books. Old maps. Strange sketches. Drawings of stars. Handwritten journals. And sitting in the corner was an old telescope aimed toward the sky. Ethan's eyes widened with amazement. It felt magical. Like the treehouse belonged to another world. Then he noticed a dusty notebook lying open on the floor. On the first page were the words, "To whoever finds this place. The compass always leads to what your heart truly seeks." Ethan read for hours. The journals belonged to an explorer named Arthur Calloway, a man who spent his life searching for hidden places, ancient mysteries, and forgotten knowledge. For the first time in years, Ethan felt excited about something. Truly excited. When the sun began setting, he carefully packed one of the journals into his backpack and headed home. And the compass guided him perfectly back through the forest. That night Ethan couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the compass. About the whisper. About the strange feeling that his life was finally beginning. Over the next several weeks, the compass became his secret. Every afternoon after school, it guided him somewhere new. Sometimes it led him to hidden streams filled with glowing fireflies. Sometimes it guided him toward old forgotten buildings outside town. Once it even led him to a frightened dog trapped beneath a collapsed fence. Ethan rescued the dog, and eventually the owner rewarded him with money and gratitude. Little by little, Ethan's life improved. He became more confident. Happier. Even his parents noticed. "You've been smiling more lately," his mother said one evening. Ethan simply shrugged. Things are getting better. But the compass never stopped moving. It always pointed somewhere. Always searching. Always leading. One rainy afternoon in November, Ethan hurried home through the forest trail while holding the compass tightly in his hand. The needle spun rapidly, almost excitedly. Thunder echoed across the sky. Rain soaked the trees. Ethan ran faster. Then suddenly, his foot struck a large rock hidden beneath wet leaves. He fell hard onto the muddy ground. Crack! The compass slipped from his fingers and smashed against a stone. The glass shattered instantly. Ethan groaned and pushed himself upright. Oh! Rain poured over him. He quickly grabbed the compass. The glass was cracked badly, but the golden needle still moved. It still works, he whispered. Without realizing it. The needle was now pointing in a completely different direction. Not toward happiness anymore. Toward misery. Toward disaster. But Ethan didn't notice. The next morning, the compass guided him to school using a longer route through unfamiliar streets. That was when trouble began. A group of older boys cornered him in an alley and stole the money he had saved. The following week, the compass led him toward an abandoned warehouse after dark. Inside, he accidentally witnessed criminals hiding stolen goods. They spotted him instantly. Ethan barely escaped. Yet somehow, he still trusted the compass. Because he believed it wanted to help him. Days passed. Then weeks. And the strange accidents became worse. His grades dropped. His friends stopped talking to him. He argued constantly with his family. The compass led him into dangerous places, bad situations, and painful choices. But every time something terrible happened, Ethan convinced himself it was only temporary. It's leading me somewhere important, he kept saying. Still, deep inside, something felt wrong. The warm feeling from before was gone. Now whenever he touched the compass, it felt cold. Heavy. Almost angry. One freezing December evening, the compass guided Ethan deep into the forest again. Snow covered the ground. Darkness surrounded the trees. The needle pointed toward an old bridge crossing a frozen river. Ethan hesitated. The wooden bridge looked unstable. Boards creaked beneath the wind. But the compass kept pointing forward. Step by step, Ethan crossed carefully. Halfway across. Snap! One of the wooden planks broke beneath his feet. Ethan slipped violently. His body crashed through the side railing. At the last second he grabbed the edge of the bridge with one hand. The compass flew from his pocket onto the snow. Ethan dangled above the freezing river below. Panic exploded through his chest. Help! The icy water rushed beneath him. His fingers slowly slipped. Then suddenly, his eyes locked onto the compass lying nearby. For the first time, he noticed the broken glass clearly. And beneath the cracked surface, the strange symbols around the edges had changed. The glowing words no longer resembled light. They looked twisted. Dark. Wrong. The needle pointed directly downward. Toward the river. Toward death. Ethan's heart froze. The compass. It wasn't leading him to happiness anymore. It was leading him toward destruction. The realization hit him like lightning. Every terrible thing. Every dangerous path. Every painful moment began after the compass broke. Terror filled his body. Using every bit of strength he had left, Ethan pulled himself back onto the bridge. Breathing heavily, he crawled across the snow toward the compass. For several seconds he stared at it silently. Then slowly, he stood up and threw it into the frozen river below. The compass disappeared beneath the black water forever. The forest suddenly became quiet. Completely quiet. Ethan stood alone in the falling snow. No glowing needle. No magical directions. No whispers telling him where to go. Only silence. For the first time in months. He had no idea where to walk next. And strangely, that felt freeing. The walk home was difficult. Cold wind burned his face, and snow covered the roads. But Ethan kept moving. Not because magic guided him. Because he chose to. Over the following months, life slowly improved again. Not magically. Not instantly. But honestly. Ethan repaired friendships. Studied harder. Spent more time with his family. Returned to the treehouse sometimes just to read quietly. And eventually he understood something important. True happiness could not come from a magical object. Because if someone else, or something else, controls your direction, then your happiness was never truly yours. Years later, as an adult, Ethan would still remember the compass. Not as a gift, but as a warning. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world is blindly following something without questioning where it leads.